Welcome in, everybody. If you can believe it, week 3 of the college football season is already here. The Auburn Tigers 2-0 on the season after back-to-back wins to open the year, of course, against Baylor, and then at home to open the home slate Jordan-Hare Stadium against Ball State. Peter Rauterkus, Simone Eli joining you for head-to-head again this week. Peter, South Alabama headed to the Plains for the first time in school history, a historic matchup for these two in-state teams. Never happened before. We cover South Alabama pretty closely at WKRG in Mobile. It's just neat to see that these two teams face off.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Hugh Freeze talked about an SEC teleconference. I mean, it's always cool when, you can have one of these games against a G5 team and it's an in-state opponent. It allows, for the fans, it's easier for them to travel to closer distance. You can keep some of that money in state. And like you mentioned, it's going to be the first ever game between Auburn and South Alabama. So just a cool day, a cool all-around, event.
Yeah, of course, Auburn goes into the game, like I mentioned, 2-0 on the season, and back-to-back games where things seems to be going as swimmingly as you would like. If you're Hugh Freeze and company, what were your biggest takeaways from that 42-3 victory over Ball State?
Yeah, I thought they took care of business. I mean, obviously against an opponent like that, there's never going to be too much that you can prove. And ESPN's SP Plus rankings, I checked this week, Ball State ranks 136 out of 136 in FBS. So not exactly a tough test, but they went in, they dominated. I mean, we've seen Auburn in the past, not handle these types of opponents the way they should.
That's certainly true.
And they did. Yeah, and they did. I thought the defense was dominant. I mean, held Ball State to, I think, 68 total yards, held them to -3 rushing yards, and you do that against anybody, and that's impressive. So I think they did what they had to do, and, now they've got another G5 game before, things start to get real next week in SEC play.
Yeah, before we really dive into the Jags and the Tigers, let's talk about our chance to see Deuce Knight in action. I know that this is a guy that has a lot of upside, a lot of excitement of what he can do in the future. Anything that you saw out of Deuce Knight coming in relief there for Jackson Arnold after his day was done during that game?
I thought he showed glimpses. I think throwing the ball didn't show as much that I think he's capable of. And Hugh Freeze mentioned that after the game, that he thought he'd go out there and complete a few more passes. But, once again, it's late in the game. It's, it's the second, third team offense that's out there with him. He made some good plays with his legs as well. So I think there were good things to take away from it. We know he's a guy that's athletic. We know he's a guy who's got a lot of arm talent. I think that it's, it's the start of what I think a lot of Auburn fans hope will be, the future for the program at quarterback.
Peter, what did you hear from Coach Freeze in this midweek as we kind of gear up for this next game going into week 3? Any significant takeaways as far as injuries or things for fans to keep an eye on?
Yeah, in terms of injuries, the big one, I think, is the running back room. He talked about that. Damari also didn't play last week against Ball State, and he's questionable once again going into this week against South Alabama. I wouldn't be surprised if they just decide to rest him again, before SEC play starts. Then another one, Darrell Robinson is going to be out. Hugh Freeze didn't get an exact time frame. He's going to miss some time after, he had a pretty scary injury kind of after the game Saturday. Hugh Freeze told us that they woke up Sunday morning and there was just a huge, I guess, kind of mass of blood on his thigh, and they had to rush him to Birmingham and get it treated. So really kind of a scary situation. But, Hugh Freeze said that they treated it successfully. Now he's just going to have to recover. So he'll be out. And so a little bit thinner in the running back room, but in terms of injury, those are the only major, updates in that regard.
Yeah, when you think about, obviously, best to him, and I guess it's definitely a scary situation that you never ever want to see. When you think about this team moving forward, where do you feel as though if there's a key spot or a key area where, hey, things just need to get dialed in. Hey, before we really rip it off into SEC play, how can this game against South Alabama, of course, Auburn is like a 25-point favorite in this game. You're expecting the Tigers to take care of business, but where do you think the team needs to improve the most, maybe going into this week before they jump into SEC play on the road in Oklahoma?
I think the offensive line, specifically in pass protection, we saw some breakdowns there against Ball State, against a defensive line that really shouldn't be threatening Auburn, quite frankly. And Hugh Freeze talked about it. He mentioned that he wanted to see them strain a little bit more, wanted to see them give a little bit more until the final whistle. And I don't think all the sacks were necessarily on them. I think Jackson Arnold has had a tendency at times to hold on to the ball a little bit long. But also, once again, like I said, you're playing against a team like Ball State. the idea is that your quarterback doesn't get touched in a game like that. And I think South Alabama is an opportunity where I think they're playing against a better team than Ball State, but they're still playing against a team that they're going to have an athletic and size advantage against.
Yeah.
So I think, if they can improve on some of those fundamentals, improve the effort in some areas, I think those are the kind of things, that's the kind of progress that Hugh Freeze and the coaches want to see before they go to Norman next week.
Yeah, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but that game in Norman is one that's going to be circled for a lot of people on both sides for obvious reasons, in way of Jackson Arnold, in way of just going on the road, open SEC play. Oklahoma right now just got a huge win over Michigan. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but that's a game that Peter, we're going to really figure out if this Auburn team is for real or not. Now ranked in the top 25, we're going to find out quick what this looks like.
Yeah, it's going to be a big test. I mean, like you mentioned, with the element of Jackson Arnold, it's going to be, a lot of emotions going into that game, I'd imagine, especially from Jackson and probably from some people on the Oklahoma side as well. Not to mention, it's a road game in the SEC. It's the SEC opener. It's going to be a game. It's similar to what we talked about with Baylor, and I think Oklahoma is a better team than Baylor. That, it's going to just be telling of what this season could look like for Auburn, especially in SEC play. So that game's going to be huge.
Yeah, and this is the last time that Auburn will be home in a month's time, because obviously they're going to go back-to-back games in the SEC on the road. Then they'll be off before being home there for the Deep South's oldest rivalry against Georgia. It's going to be a minute before they're back there at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this is one that a lot of fans are excited for. It's homecoming at Auburn this weekend. It's going to be a whiteout. It's an early kickoff. And like you said, I mean, it's going to be, who knows what, by the time, if everything goes well, maybe Auburn is, top 15, top 10 team when they come back home. If things go badly, then maybe the vibes are really bad when we come back home.
And you never know right now, especially in college football, because there's so much parity, and it could be anybody's Saturday. There's no doubt about that. Peter, if you had to put a score on this one for prediction as far as South Alabama and Auburn, what you like here in this head-to-head prediction?
Yeah, I believe in our predictions article, I put 45-14 Auburn as my score prediction. Like I said earlier, I think South Alabama is going to be a little bit more competitive than Ball State was, and I think they've got some pieces on offense that could trouble Auburn maybe at times and put some points on the board. But I still think Auburn will win this game comfortably.
Yeah, I think so too. I would put it high 30s, and I like 14 there for South. I think that there's a respect level on both sides. Not that anyone's ever going to call off the dogs in terms of, hey, let go your fourth strings in there scoring. Listen, they're scoring, but I do feel like there's a decent amount of respect level. And yeah, I mean, does Auburn cover? Possibly, but I think at the end of the day, they have it in hand, and I think that South Alabama certainly keeps it respectable when it comes to their competitive team that's going to be there at the end of the Sun Belt Conference too. So looking forward to this game. It's going to be an early one, 11:45. I'll be there on the Plains on Saturday, so looking forward to that, and maybe I'll get to see it actually in person. That'll be fun.
That's true. Yeah, for sure.
All right, good stuff, guys. Peter Rauterkus, Simone Eli for Head to Head, and we will see you next week as Auburn opens up SEC play.
Brought to you by Alabama Beef Farmers and Ranchers.